Jeff Bezos just quietly broke a 25-year-old habit. Blue Origin suddenly looks like a $130 billion space giant, and satellite internet war with Elon Musk enters a new phase. But here's the curious part. Why would a billionaire who's been writing the checks himself for decades now, out of all moment, to invite Wall Street into his space dream? Stay with me, because this isn't just a story about rockets. It's about control, competition. Now, the next internet you use might not come through a cable in the ground at all. Welcome to Business Insights Daily. I'm your host, Sashank. Blue Origin's Jeff Bezos' rocket company raised a staggering $10 billion in its first ever round of outside funding. The round is expected to value the company at around $130 billion, putting it in the same ballpark as some of the world's biggest tech and aerospace players. Bezos himself is reportedly putting in over $2 billion, while Quattro Management, a major tech-focused asset manager, is committing roughly $4 billion. Other institutional investors expected to make up the rest four. So the headline is clear. Blue Origin is opening the door to outside investors for the first time in 25 years. The real question is why? The timing. For a quarter century, Jeff Bezos largely bankrolled Blue Origin by selling Amazon stock, quietly funneling billions into rockets, engines, and moon landing ambitions without inviting venture capital private equity to the table. And then in mid 2026, he flips the script and lets Koto and other big institutions join. One clue at what's happening down the road in Hawthorne, California. SpaceX recently went public, igniting investor appetite for space and giving markets a real time benchmark for what a dominant launch and satellite company can be worth. Reports suggest that SpaceX IPO will reset expectations for valuations across private space firms, and Blue Origin is now stepping into the newly energized capital market. And here's the second hook. Is this fundraising round less about needing cash and more about signaling to investors, regulators, and rivals that Blue Origin is ready to be seen in the same league as SpaceX? What the money is for. So let's talk what you actually do $10 billion in space. Blue Origin's business race spans several fronts. New Shepard suborbital tourism flights, its much larger New Glenn orbital rocket, and now a major push into satellite communications. Earlier this year, Blue Origin announced TerraWave, a constellation of 5,408 satellites designed to create high-capacity communication network with enterprise, data center, and government customers. The company aims to start deploying that network around 2027, entering an increasingly crowded field where SpaceX's Starlink already has thousands of satellites and millions of subscribers. Developing a global satellite network, building out New Glenn, and competing for NASA and defense contracts is capital intensive in a way that a billionaire's personal fortune doesn't easily cover forever, which makes $10 billion fresh capital suddenly look very, very practical. The satellite internet race. Understand why all of this matters for you and me. We may need to zoom out into the satellite internet landscape. SpaceX's Starlink has become the early winner, with roughly thousands of satellites in orbit and millions of paying users all around the world. It offers broadband to rural communities, ships, planes, and even weak remote research stations. It's a dense, low Earth orbit constellation that are and relatively affordable usable terminals. Amazon is building its own network, often referenced as Project Kuiper or Leo. Thousands of satellites already in orbit and ambitions for thousands more, positioning itself as a direct competitor to Starlink and both consumers and enterprises. Now, Blue Origin's TerraWave adds a third major player, adding in both capacity, corporate links, and government data rather than everyday home internet, at least initially. If you think about this, this starts to look like the early days of the railroad of telecom, where multiple networks race to lay tracks or fiber. Only this time the infrastructure is orbiting above heads. Here's the third look. By opening up Blue Origin to outside investors, Bezos may be in trading a bit of control that he can't get on his own. Customers. Large institutions and strategic partners don't just bring money, they bring relationship governments, enterprises, and global infrastructure buyers who decide which network carries the data. At the same time, more investors means more pressure on launch cadence, on TerraWave's rollout, on Blue Origin's competitiveness against SpaceX, Amazon satellite service, and other emerging players. The narrative shifts from Jeff's long-term science project to a $130 billion business that needs to start showing results. The curious question is, can a company built in billionaire stealth mode 25 years suddenly become high transparency, high expectancy global infrastructure provider without losing what made it so uniquely unique with Blue Origin in the first place? Of course, hovering over all of this is Elon and SpaceX. SpaceX has a formidable lead in launch capacity. The reusable Falcon 9 rockets flying at pace that resets industry benchmarks. And Starlink throwing off meaningful cash is offline. That cash in turn helps fund ambitious projects like Starship and further Starlink expansion. Blue Origin, by contrast, has slower to reach operational cadence with New Glenn and is still in the early stages of deploying the satellite network. Although it has secured NASA's contracts and is positioning itself as a long-term player in lunar exploration and heavy lift launches. This new fundraising round is awaited by speed. More money for more pads, more production capacity, more satellites, and more chances to catch up. The rivalry isn't just personal. Bezos versus Musk, it's structural. Who controls the backbone of space-based internet and logistics in 2030s and 2040s. What investors are betting on? If you're an investor looking at this round, what exactly are you betting on? First of all, you're betting on the space economy, launches, satellite communications, lunar infrastructure. It's going to be much bigger in a decade than it ever has been today. Secondly, you're betting that Blue Origin's combination of technology, Bezos' capital and cloud, and new institutional backing can carve out a durable position against SpaceX and others. And you're also implicitly betting that TerraWave will find enough enterprises and government demands to justify thousands of satellites and massive ground infrastructure. Even Starlink and Amazon's networks continue to expand. They're betting that regulators, same ones who worry about orbital debris, spectrum interference, and competition, will allow multiple mega constellations to coexist in scale. It's a complex thesis, given the valuation and demand reportedly circling this round. It's a thesis a lot of capital seems willing to test. What could it mean for you? So, what does this mean if you're not investing billions in space? In the near term, more competition usually means more innovations happening. Better satellite hardware, cheap launch services, and potentially more affordable and reliable connectivity in places that have never had it. Blue Origin's TerraWave succeeds, it can make high capacity, low latency links more accessible for data heavy applications, from cloud computing to AI training to secure government networks. Jeff Bezos opens Blue Origin stores outside money for the first time, raising $10 billion at a $130 billion valuation. In a world where SpaceX has gone public, satellite internet is becoming the next great infrastructure race. The question is that will define the next chapter isn't just who builds the biggest rocket at the largest constellation, it's who builds the most trusted, most widely used network in the sky. That's it for today's episode of Business Insights Daily. If you enjoyed this deep dive into the new space capital race, follow and share it with someone who thinks the internet still lives in the box under the desk. Thank you for listening, and we'll see you next time.